Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If everybody could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are, Mayor. Few here. So one, we do have a special meeting with one agenda item running concurrent, that will run concurrent with the primary meeting agenda, and we'll add that as 5.12 on the consent calendar. We're also gonna swap number 1 and number 2, because I know we have probably people from out of town, so we'll swap 1 and 2 under awards, presentations, and appointments. And then we also are going to be pulling number 4, the public hearing, number 1 under public hearings. Unfortunately, there was an error with the Hanford Sentinel on the posting for the noticing. So unfortunately, it got 9 days of noticing instead of 10. So unfortunately, that has to be reposted. And so we'll bring that back on the December meeting.
We have a motion? I'll motion to approve the agenda as read with the changes.
I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Horn,
Aye.
Councilman Hedgecock,
Aye.
Councilman Schindler, Councilman Vosberg,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez.
I would. Aye.
Okay, we'll move on to our next item, awards, presentations, appointments, and proclamations. Our first one tonight is letter of commendation to Officer Daniel Sacida.
Staff and public. This evening, I'm honored to come before you and the public to recognize one of our finest here at the police department and for his outstanding work in making our community a lot safer. As you know, the police department has a zero tolerance with the gang population. Those who are preying on our residents with their violence and thefts and selling of drugs. And if you recall, a week and a half ago, you received about 6 press releases, correct? 5, which actually described the efforts that we had against the gangs and the crimes they've been committing in our community. So we've done a lot of good work. Well, tonight I'll be presenting a letter of commendation to the officer who initiated and took the lead of each of those investigations. So at this time, Officer Daniel Sacida, please come up to the podium. In fact, if I could have the sergeants and all the officers to come also behind him, be part of this presentation, please. As you know, in investigations, it takes teamwork and dedication. So the sergeants and the officers here made that happen in these investigations. So I'm very proud of them, and I really appreciate for all your efforts and your supervision. Officer Sacida, the letter of commendation states the following. Sergeant Tony Henderson and Sergeant Damian Sparks have brought to my attention your outstanding performance on 6 separate investigations. The investigation resulted in 10 arrests of 7 Kalinga male gang members and 3 female adults. In addition, you wrote 2 search warrants, and with the assistance of CDCR Crisis Response Team and the Kalinga police officers, the warrants were served, which resulted in the seizures of guns and drugs, including over 1,000 M30 fentanyl pills. Furthermore, while you were on working patrol on October 10th of this year, you became aware of a Bulldog gang member having a birthday party at his residence on East Pleasant Street. You observed approximately 10 to 15 gang members at the party. You recognized this could be a problem, so you contacted the Fresno Multi-Agency Gang Consortium, MAGIC, for assistance. You met with MAGIC officers and coordinated a plan. MAGIC officers conducted traffic stops on the vehicles leaving the gang party. Although no contraband was located or arrests made, your actions sent a strong message to the gang members that gang activity is not acceptable in our city. The gang party shut down early and no further calls service were generated. I would like to thank you for your dedication to the department and your passion in making our community safe. You are a shining example of what a dedicated officer can do to make a difference in our community. So congratulations and thank you. And come on. Here you go. Hold this. Just, right?
I'm surprised the officers are pretending to be shy.
Okay. I still need the commander's signature, so just go back to him and sign it, and then make a copy. We'll put it in his file, okay?
Thank you, guys.
Sure.
Thank you, Officer Salcida.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to our second item tonight, presentation of the results of the water and wastewater solar facility bonds. Bud Levine from Wolf and Hanson Company.
All right, thank you. This will actually be presented by Rob with Wolf Hansen. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if Bud's going to be on the call or not.
No,
but-
Sean, I am. I'd like to say a few introductory words.
And there
before
is
Rob.
Bud. So they're just going to provide an update, kind of a summary of the results of the recent bonds that were issued for the solar facility at the water and wastewater facility. And as I think I may have mentioned at a previous meeting, we actually got some really good results, much better than what was actually presented originally to the council, and kind of what could be the worst case scenario became almost the best case scenario. So with that, Bud, I will turn it over to you and Rob, and you guys can kind of give an overview of how the financing went.
Sure. Thank you very much, Sean, and good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. It's a pleasure to be here tonight to report to the council the results of the financings for the water and wastewater solar project. This project started 7 years ago with the selection of Johnson Controls through an RFP process to be the energy services company to design and install the solar facilities. Due to the many obstacles that we faced in this journey, the project was delayed for over 5.5 years. And then in 2023 through 2024, we were finally able to structure the financings to accomplish the city's goals. And the bonds were sold in late September. The transaction closed on October 1st. The funds are in the project funds with the trustee for the project, and the notice to proceed is currently in process. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rob to go through the results.
Thank you, Bud. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. Can everyone see the presentation on the screen?
We can, Rob.
Okay, great. So I'm here to talk about the city's issuance of revenue bonds from both the water and wastewater enterprise via the Coalinga Public Financing Authority. Next slide, please. Great. So just a little bit of background. On June 20th, the City Council approved a contract with JCI to install solar panels at the water and wastewater plants, waste treatment plants. On August 1st, the City Council, acting as the Board of Directors for the Coalinga Public Financing Authority, approved the issuance of the bonds. On September 17th, the bonds were priced and sold as a negotiated public offering to underwriter firm Oppenheimer and Company. One representative of Oppenheimer, Mr. Michael Garcia, is here with us tonight if there are any questions. And then lastly, on October 1st, the bond closing had a successful close and the project funds were made available to the city. Next slide, please. So on this slide, we show a comparison of the estimates that were provided at the August 1st City Council meeting, and we compare that to the final results that were achieved at the end of last month. This slide combines both the water and wastewater bond issuances. They are broken out in later slides. So at the August 1st City Council meeting, the project had estimated cash flow savings of 14.5 million. As of the final pricing with the debt service fixed and locked, the final estimates for the cash flow savings for this project are just over 18 million, almost a $4 million improvement from what was shown at August 1st. The estimated net present value of savings, or the time value of money of the savings that we projected at the August 1st council meeting, was $6 million. As of the final pricing, in today's dollars, the savings produced by the project is estimated to be over $10 million, or a $4 million improvement. At the August 1st council meeting, we talked about a total borrowing of $11.7 million to cover the cost of the project, as well as the soft costs associated with the bond issue. That amount would need to be supplemented by a $1 million cash contribution from the enterprise funds so that the project could pencil out. That financial arrangement produced estimated net debt service of just over 23.5 million. Now, as of the results of the final pricing, we were actually able to borrow just over $12 million, and we were able to forego the cash contribution from the enterprise funds. This financial arrangement produced total net debt service of just under $20.9 million. The difference in the borrowing amounts plus the cash contributions are due to a couple of factors. The first being the increasing of the project fund by $1 million to offset the city's cash contribution, and the second was a reduction in the previously estimated expenses for capitalized interest in the reserve fund, which reduced the borrowing by $700,000. We increased the project fund by $1 million, so the net effect was $300,000 of additional borrowing when compared to what was shown at the August 1st meeting, and then $1 million less in upfront cash that needed to be contributed. Next slide, please. So on this slide, we show a similar breakdown for just the water bond, which was the larger of the two. The final estimated savings is $15.5 million. That's a $3.5 million improvement from what was approved at the August 1st meeting. The net present value of those savings are just over $8.5 million, roughly a $3.5 million improvement from what was shown at the August 1st council meeting. The total net debt service, as of the final pricing, is $15.3 million as compared to what was shown August 1st, which was $18.3 million. The true interest costs as a result of the final pricing was just over 4%. At the prior council meeting, we had estimated a true interest cost of almost 6%, about a 2% difference. And in a few slides, I'll explain what drove that. Next slide, please. On this slide, we show the breakdown of the wastewater bond, very similar to the water bond, but on a smaller scale. Cash flow savings of $2.7 million, a small increase from what was shown at the prior meeting, as well as present value savings for the project of just over $1.5 million, about a $500,000 improvement from what was estimated at the August 1st council meeting. The wastewater bonds sold with a true interest cost of 4%, and that's approximately 1% better than the interest rate we had estimated in our August 1st projections. And the true interest cost is essentially the blended interest rate for the bond issuance. So you could compare that to like a yield or the interest rate on any type of debt. Next slide, please. So now we're going to briefly talk about the outcome drivers, why the final results were so much stronger than what was projected at the August 1st meeting. The first factor is the attainment of an A2 bond rating from Moody's Ratings for both the water and wastewater bonds. This sort of falls into the best case scenario that Sean had alluded to earlier. Oppenheimer, ourselves, the staff, and the whole financing team worked diligently with both S&P Global Ratings and Moody's to come up with a credit rating strategy to try to deliver the best results for the city. The A2 rating that was achieved is a very highly desirable rating, particularly compared to what S&P had downgraded the 2021 bonds to in February of 2024, which was double B plus, and that's a non-investment grade rating. So the credit strategy was a huge driver of the outcome here, and had the bonds been priced and sold as non-investment grade like S&P expected them to, it would have been very difficult to get bond insurance and a surety reserve policy, which is the second key outcome driver here. So let's talk about that a little bit. There were two insurance policies that these bonds qualified for. The first is called bond insurance, and bond insurance means that you purchase a policy and the insurance company guarantees the repayment, guarantees the debt service payments to the investors, and that allows you to sell the bonds with the insurer's rating. So we jumped from a double B plus to an A2, and then we jumped up further to a double A, which is right at the top of the rating matrix. This improved the security for the bonds, it enhanced the marketability, and it ultimately led to much more attractive borrowing costs. The second insurance product that these bonds qualified for was a surety reserve policy. The water bonds qualified for a 50% policy, and the wastewater bonds qualified for a 100% policy. A surety reserve policy allows you to forego funding a reserve fund, which is essentially like a backup source to pay debt service that's typically equal to about 1 year of debt service. And instead of having to put that money up front, the insurer guarantees that money is available in exchange for the cost of a small insurance policy. So these two insurance products drove down borrowing costs for the city and made your bonds much more secure and marketable. So the rating combined with the two insurance products enabled the city to finance 100% of the project costs, something that we previously did not think was feasible given the economics of the project. So a very, very positive situation. Next slide, please. On this slide, we show a model that you are probably familiar with by now. This is the same cash flow model that we had shown at the August 1st council meeting and then the July or June 20th council meeting prior thereto. Going from, and this one's for the water treatment plant only, going from left to right, we show the kilowatt hours that JCI projects that the project will produce over 25 years. The kilowatt hours that are produced get converted into dollar savings, which are the revenues for the project. The revenues are reduced by the project expenses and the debt service. We then have the colorful column almost all the way on the right that shows what was formerly the city's cash contribution to the project, which is now zero, as well as in year 3, a $2.8 million ITC direct pay subsidy from the federal government that this project qualifies for. So on the very far right, we show the annual cash flows for the project, and you'll notice that in each and every year, per the request of the council, this project has positive cash flow and significant positive cash flow each and every year, which should eliminate any pressure to potentially have to raise rates and at any time as a result of this project due to non-linear cash flows or periods of cash flow that are negative that could cause budgetary pressure. So that was something that we were able to totally eliminate. And we were able to do that based on feedback from the council. Next slide, please. On this slide, we show the same analysis for the wastewater project. Very similar to the water, but on a smaller scale. We have our energy production on the far left, which gets converted into the revenues. The revenues are reduced by the project expenses and the net debt service. And then the wastewater project also qualified for the ITC direct pay subsidy from the federal government in the amount of approximately $1 million. This project also cash flows positive each and every year, producing significant savings up front from the direct pay subsidy, as well as escalating savings thereafter. And then on to the last slide, please. So we just want to give a couple final thoughts. We want to thank the city staff for your hard work and dedication on this project, which was initially started more than 7 years ago. We want to thank the city council for sticking with everyone and the team on this process, even though it took many years. Your feedback throughout this process was very key and really drove some of the positive outcomes that we got to at the end. Particularly your feedback about making sure that the project cash flows positive every year, not just cumulatively, to make sure that everyone is focusing on the ability for it to work within the rate structure and work for the ratepayers and not cause any downsides despite a cumulatively positive effort. We initially didn't think that this would be feasible with that type of cash flow. We went round and round many a times, but ultimately the council drawing this line in the sand gave us what we needed to go to JCI and to negotiate concessions that would make this project outcome possible. And then the positive results were just further supplemented by the positive outcomes with the rating agencies and insurers. And then lastly, I want to thank the members of the financing team, some who are with us tonight and some who aren't. And I want to give a special thank you to Dan Bergman for his work throughout this whole process, particularly as it relates to preparing the financial projections, which were used in the negotiations with JCI, the rating process, the bond insurance procurement process. It was used in the marketing documents that were sent to investors. So just thank you to everyone who worked on this project. It was a long haul and really appreciate your support. We're here to answer any questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you. Council have any questions at this time? I think we're all happy because it actually saved us a little bit of money. You guys did really great work for us. Thank you.
We appreciate that.
Okay, we'll move on to our next item. This one is citizens' comments. This section of the agenda allows members of the public to address the city council on any item within the jurisdiction of the council. Members of the public, when recognized by the mayor, should come forward to the lectern, identify themselves, and use the microphone. Comments are normally limited to 3 minutes in accordance with state open meeting laws. No action will be taken by the city council this evening, and all items will be referred to staff for a follow-up and a report. Citizens' comments submitted in writing by the city or to the city clerk by 5 p.m. of the day of the city council meeting shall be distributed to the city council and included in the record. However, they will not be read. At this time, do we have anybody would like to come up?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tina Yaden, and I am here just to represent Coalinga's Gold Star Wellness Center. I have some new handout flyers of all the activities that we have been either up to or going to be up to. I'll leave them here front and back, lots of fun stuff. And if you haven't seen or heard of what we're doing, please talk to me after the meeting. The big thing that we want to start promoting is our gingerbread house competition. We're going to go through the different businesses, through the different departments of all the businesses and of the city and maybe the fire department and the police department. But we're looking for teams for this competition. It is going to happen on December 7th during the Holiday Boutique with the Chamber down center of town. What is it? Plaza. Thank you, Plaza. And the winning team will receive cash prize. So we're very excited about this gingerbread house competition. and we want to definitely start promoting it. So if you are not attached to any of our social media, please, or my text message alerts, please get on that list. We have a rummage sale coming up, a blanket drive. If you know of anyone who needs blankets, winter coats, beanies, scarves, socks, mittens, that will be on December 17th, but they have to have a voucher. And we do have vouchers in several locations throughout the community. We have a sewing club that we're doing. We've got yoga. We've got American Heart, BLS, and American Red Cross CPR classes. We have a senior silver sneakers class. The list just goes on and on. We've got lots of wonderful enrichment, wellness groups, peer social. We have a peer-led support group. We have, I just applied for an art grant. If we get it, we'll be doing a large Tree of Life mural on the front of the building. We've got the permission of the landlords. It will be a meditation and prayer rock garden with benches and shade in front of our building. And so it will be a community art project. So we're very excited, and so please keep us in positive energy and good thoughts that we get this grant. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? We have any comment cards for now?
Not under citizens' comments, but for two of the consent calendar items.
Okay. Council? Anything? No? Okay, we'll move on to the next item. Consent calendar. We've got 12 items tonight. What would council like to do? I know I want to pull item number 10 and item number 11.
I'd like to pull number 5. Eight, just for the public.
Okay, we'll move on to the first item, item number 5, Councilman Vosberg.
Yeah, I usually pull anything that's kind of a claim for the city, just to have it read through.
Yeah, so unfortunately Mercedes isn't here tonight. However, I did speak with her a little bit.
I am on Zoom.
Oh, Mercedes is on. All right.
I'm available via Zoom. So Councilmember Vosberg, I'll just give a brief on this claim for damages presented by Mr. Medina. He did file a claim against the city for an incident that occurred in October of 2020. This is an untimely claim. He alleges the police department illegally shot his dog. We sent this to George Hill's company for review, and after reviewing, they determined it was an untimely filed claim. They did reach out to him, and he did not have a valid reason for filing a late claim, so therefore they recommend the rejection of this claim for damages.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Council? Looks like none at this time. Thank you, Mercedes. Okay, our next one is item number 8, Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez.
I just want to put this item just for informational for the public.
Yeah, so this is a typical process when we do property negotiations. Once the decision's made on moving forward with a piece of property to purchase, we just formally accept it. We haven't finalized the purchase, but we are currently in escrow on the property. This is the property that's been designated for the splash pad. So the splash pad will be moving to 405 North 5th Street. And so this is just accepting the property. We're still currently in escrow on the property at this time.
If those are unfamiliar with the area, that location is directly across the street from our large clock downtown. Okay, our next item is 10. Item number 10. I believe we have a couple cards on that. But the question is, are we able to at least take a look at this? And it's going to become a future agenda item as well, about bringing it forward once a month and having it, our code enforcement here to discuss any questions, if there is any questions or concerns, just like we do with the police reports as well. Would you like to come up and ask your question, Chuck? Are we able to pull the report up on the screen, Robert?
You're good. You're good.
Thank you.
Citizen here in Kalinga. I would just like a little bit more of a breakdown exactly what they're doing, you know, if we can get, I'm not looking for complete details, but just a little bit more information than just the vague information that's on it. I'm really happy to see that it's going to be pulled off the consent agenda and put on the other one, because I am sure not only me, but I'm sure that there's other people that would be interested to know what's going on too. You know, and instead of, you know, like even with the police report, maybe if we can get a little bit more details, Chief. I'm not looking for names and addresses, but just a little bit more information, because, you know, curiosity. And just to, you know, so we know what's going on in town. So we could thank the police department for doing a good job, the code enforcement, so we know a little bit more what's going on. That was it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Council have any questions on those? No? Okay, we'll move on to, that covered both 10 and 11. Go ahead.
I would like to ask the chief about 11 and see if he can give us kind of a breakdown, just a brief one, specifically about how things have been going with the cameras and how they've been doing. I've had some questions from the public on those.
Actually, the camera program is going very well. Now, can you hear me? Yes. Currently, we have approximately 20 locations in the city that has cameras. And of those 20 locations, we have approximately 11 of those locations have license plate captures. So the technology of having these cameras has really helped in our crime fighting. It helps it in way of deterrence. We don't hide it. You could see it on the poles. So if it caused somebody from wanting to steal something or do something bad or rob somebody, and they see these cameras, if it deters them from doing that, then it worked. Crime fighting wise, we utilize it when we're doing investigations at times. When we have a vehicle of interest or a subject that we're looking for that's wanted, we'll put that information of that vehicle in the system of the license plate capture. And what that does, it alerts our dispatch if that vehicle's in town, comes across one of the license plate captures. It alerts our dispatch. Our dispatch alerts our officers the direction it's going. It shows a photo of it, the reason why it's on there. And we've so far made several arrests just on that information of having that technology. So we still have several more to put up. So it's a grant funded, doesn't cost the city anything. It's part of the BSCC grant. But it's a tool that's really has helped our crime fighting here. And just as you've seen the results of just the September stats, you know, year to date, we're looking at 24% deduction of crime. So I'm hoping to end the year with a reduction of crime compared to last year. We had a reduction of crime, I believe, was 15%, and currently we're holding at 24%. So hopefully at the end of the year, we'll show the big difference. And I will have my annual report that's completed. That would be submitted for January for the review, and I'll have a detail of everything. And as to the citizen asking for additional information on the crime report or the monthly report, I usually put press releases, anything significant arrests, but I'll look at what information I could put there that we could be able to share with the public.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I do have a quick question. Are we still waiting on Caltrans approval for some of the cameras still?
Yes, we're waiting, also still waiting for hopefully the annexation of the area of the Derrick Tower, so we could have a tower out there. And that's going to be, Dan is working on that with Caltrans,
Okay,
our engineer.
thank you. Any more questions, council? Okay, what would we like to do with the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent calendar as read.
I'll second that.
We get roll call, please?
Councilman Vosberg,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez,
Aye.
Councilman Hedgecock,
Aye.
Mayor Horn.
And I vote aye. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to our next item, ordinance presentation, discussion, and potential action items. We've got 3 items tonight. The first one being discussion, direction, and potential action related to the Coalinga Electronic relocation budget and plan.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So we're back again discussing the infamous electronic sign at Cherry and Elm. Staff went back and looked at some other locations from the previous meeting based on the direction of the council and found potentially another alternative site if the council so chooses. Is that I know that you guys were looking at locations near a signalized intersection, and so we looked at the corner of, and it would be the northwest corner of Forest and Polk as a potential location with similar costs. We would have to talk with the property owner just to verify that we could acquire a little bit of right-of-way, which at one time the city owned the right-of-way, then we abandoned the right-of-way when we realigned that intersection and signalized it back in about 2008 or 9. And so that's another location. Based on, as you can see in the staff report, staff is still recommending the initial location on the triangle there on Grant Street. But at this point, the recommendation is to at least provide direction, if there is not a consensus on a location, is to at least proceed with dismantling the existing sign, because Starbucks has submitted all of their payments. I don't know, Robert, if they've actually pulled permits, but they are permit ready for the new Starbucks. So we are expecting them to start construction relatively soon, and so we'll need to make sure we kind of get out of their way and move that sign. So whether we dismantle the sign, store it, and decide at a future date what we would like to do with that sign, or if the council so chooses to designate a location, we can have that sign moved to that location. So with that, I'll entertain any comments.
I've got some. I think with the amount of money that we need to spend to fix it right now, and not knowing if Measure J is going to pass, and if we're going to have to start looking at making cuts, we need to look at things for the city that bring in revenue, and that's not one of them right now. Hopefully with the turnover with the election, we have upcoming better economy, and some of the projects that our investors and that are talking about building here in town, they get going with it, and we can get some more movement on all that and get the community going in the right direction. And once that happens, maybe we can find a better place than the triangle by Tropicana, because that's not a good place.
I echo the exact statement and concerns of Councilman Hedgecock, and I agree that we should wait. We should store it and wait for different time, maybe better ideas. I agree.
Okay, so I think the recommendation is to postpone the purchase of the new one, but at least approve the removal and storage of the sign for now, so that way that the new developer can start their construction right away. pending the existing requested location and a possible different location on Forest and Polk.
Okay. Sounds good.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Horn,
Aye.
Councilman Hedgecock,
Aye.
Councilman Vosberg,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez.
Aye.
Okay, our next item is Fire Department update on the abatement and of burned properties and potential action by the City Council. Chief Milligan.
Thank you, council, staff. So at this time, we would like to recommend moving forward with abatement of a couple of properties here in Coalinga that have been deemed nuisance by the fire chief and the fire marshal. The city does have current ways of doing this. We've actually been discussing this with the city attorney's office on the best way to proceed. And I listed in the staff report, hopefully you guys have seen, there's basically 3 different ordinances that set aside just for these causes. And basically these are the best ways that the attorney's office has told us to move forward with these, abating these different properties. Just a quick discussion of this. So since October of 21, the fire department has had 12 structures that have been deemed public nuisance. Of these, at this time, we only have 2 that have not been addressed by the property owners for different reasons. So both properties are considered blight in the community. Both have multiple calls for service by Coalinga Police Department for vandalism, theft, trespassing, and one of those properties is actually burned a second time. So both of these houses have been posted for abatement. It's a 90-day process that we had to go through trying to get a hold of property owners. We have not gotten contact from either of the owners of those properties. And so we're looking at trying to go ahead and go forward on the abatement process through the city ordinances. After discussion with the attorney's office and Tri-City Engineering, they've put together an estimated cost to abate each of the houses. It's roughly $30,000 for each house. Like I said, we're looking at 2 houses right now. And on top of that, there would be some additional costs from the city attorney's office for filing for the abatement warrants and things like that that would have to go through Fresno County courts for. So we don't have an exact number for that, but that's just the attorney's office hourly rate is what they put it at. On top of that, Mr. Brewer has discussed it with Finance Department on setting up an account, like a revolving account, and I'll let him talk about that a little bit more about it. If you want to tell them what that is.
Sure. So what we're anticipating is a lot of times when we abate properties, or like in this case, we'll have to demolish these properties, we're not going to recover those costs immediately. So a lot of times we'll give the property owner an opportunity to pay within a certain time frame. If they don't, then we do file a lien on the property. And then eventually, if the property sells, then we'll collect that through the escrow process and receive that as part of releasing the lien and as part of the sale. So what we're anticipating is setting up kind of a reimbursement type account or a receivable account where we can expend from it with the expectation that eventually we'll recover all those costs. So basically the lien will spell out all the administrative costs, legal fees, engineering fees if possible, bidding process, because we have to bid these out in order to actually get them demolished. And so we'll have some upfront costs. I feel like the city's in a financial situation where we have enough cash flow to be able to upfront these costs and expenses with the anticipation they may come in it may take a few years. I've received, it could be even longer, but we want to be fully transparent with the council in terms of the expenses, because they're not cheap to be able to demolish these, but we know it is a priority to try to remove the blight throughout the community, and these have been here for quite some time. We also want to kind of roll in our typical property abatements, not necessarily demolishing properties, but also just normal abatement of whether it be front yards or backyards or any other types of a public nuisance that we deal with. Those are much smaller in scale, but also include those and start tracking those in this actual this type of reimbursement fund. So we can actually, so when liens are filed, money, when we receive that, goes back into that and then reimburses out, say, a public works crew, if they end up doing an abatement, we would reimburse those accounts. And so we want to just kind of house it somewhere, but I think we're in a position where we can float these costs. And so we just want to kind of bring that up to the council, make sure you're comfortable with that, so we can proceed forward with these abatements of these houses, as well as kind of keep that going with our other abatements with code enforcement as well.
So, once the lien's put on the property, who's in charge of selling the property?
Well, the lien goes on the property, and until the property sells, so whether, whoever owns it at the time,
So let's say they decide not to sell.
then it sits there until it sells.
Because, what's the movement for these people to sell the property? I mean, I guess once it's already abated, they could try and sell it and recover some cash, but.
There could be opportunities if you have, if taxes aren't being paid, eventually it gets to the point where it can be foreclosed on. Based on, because it's going to be vacant land once you remove the structures. And so the value is going to go down. So value of a vacant lot in town may be the value of what the lien is. So it may go, I think we could file foreclosure on it if the lien exceeds the value of the property. So there's that opportunity as well.
So is there a way to force to be able to recover the cash? Is there a way to force a sale? Is there a way to basically state like, hey, we had to do this work, like we have a lien on this property, and so, a certain amount of time goes by, you don't sell it. Is there a way that we can move to take the property basically for the amount that's on the lien?
That would be through the foreclosure process, but I'm not sure what would trigger that.
It's a 5-year process.
It's a 5-year process. Okay, and can we make sure that every time that these are brought back to council so that we know how much that we're spending? I mean, that way we know that we can budget for this type of stuff and,
Yeah, so we have
create your
estimates for
count.
these two, but we can
Yeah.
definitely bring future ones back to the council to authorize the abatement, so you're aware of the cost and even give you an update on what's currently in that expense fund.
And then, I see you have two here. We still have, one that's right outside of town, that's probably the biggest blight right when you come in, the old bowling alley. I mean, he may say it's safe, but I mean, it's the most worst thing to see right when you come into town. It's obviously a burnt down building. Obviously, no one's doing anything with it.
Unfortunately, I shouldn't say that, but as far as the fire side of it goes, they've made it safe. And they've done what they're required to do to make it not deemed a nuisance property by the fire department. So they have been the ability to do that. Now it's kind of in the area for code enforcement, building department, things like that.
So, do we have a plan for that?
As far as I know, because that was earlier on, I'm not fully aware of what was arranged, but my understanding is that what was declared the public nuisance and the issue with the burned down building has been finalized on that.
Well, I mean, it's still, if we're going to talk about this, I like to talk about it as a whole. I like this idea, but I also want to put teeth into the fact that, hey, if people are going to have it just sit there with a destroyed building, even if it meets fire code, no, we should have some other code that says, hey, this thing is a blight on the community. It's coming right into town. It sets the wrong tone. You don't know how many people I've heard from that say, hey, what's that building right there? What did it used to be? And people want to know, but then, of course, the idea is it just makes it look bad coming into town. So that might be another discussion, but I just want to put it out there when we're currently talking about this, that, like, hey, maybe it's not just buildings that are deemed a hazard with fire, like, by what you're saying, like, hey, it meets the actual code, but, hey, there was a fire there, and no one paid to rebuild this place. So I'm not talking about going after houses that just don't look good. I'm just saying, like, hey, this was an actual fire, and this house, not the house, but this facility was never rebuilt. And I feel like that when there's money that's going to have to be put, and this does apply to this, that people aren't going to spend the money. They're going to sit on it. I mean, what's their benefit? you know? I mean, but the properties in these locations, I do believe that, you know, they do have a significant amount of blight to the residents around there. And, you know, I would be in favor of doing that personally. I don't know.
One
What does the rest of council
question I
think?
have to that is what if the homeowner or property owner is unlocatable? Then what? Does it take longer to take possession of the property? Or is there a way that we can fast track that instead of having to wait? Especially if there's no death certificate, or if they're missing, or if they're just not around and not responding.
Are you talking about giving them notice?
Yes.
You have to attempt personal service, and if there's not personal service, then you can publish in the newspaper.
All right.
So you have to attempt 3 times, and then afterwards you can do what's called substituted service.
Okay, and
So
how
that-
long does that take before we could put a lien or eminent domain or something on there to get, so we can get the property sold if they're not able to get a hold of the actual owner?
So if you're not able to get hold of the actual owner, you have to try 3 times, and then after 30 days, then you can do the substituted service by publishing. And then afterwards, I believe it's a 6-month period. So there's a time period in between.
So that part of it wouldn't necessarily take 5 years then?
Correct.
Okay, that's all I needed to know. Any other questions?
Yeah, just like Council Bosworth, there's 2 properties. There's the one in Elm, was the one on Elm Street. There was one knocked down, but there's another one.
There is, and they currently have, I know they did a demolition permit, they've
Okay.
demoed the damaged area. They are moving slowly, but they're within their permit. So they're still doing that, and Robert might know if they've actually started a building permit on it yet, but
Yeah.
their process is going on.
Oh, okay, all right.
So I have another question. In some of these situations where these costs could get, I see that then, you know, things could change. They aren't like static, right? Is there an idea that once we get a quote for these, that we could reach out to the owners and ask them that, hey, it might be better for them to sign us over the property rather than and then we could abate the property, but then we would at least have it. And then, you know, that, I mean, over time, I could see that these costs could go up. So maybe we could reach out and say, you know, make them a deal so that we could get the property earlier, so we don't have to wait 5 years to get the money back.
There could be a possibility where we could send a letter with a quote. We know what the quote, well, it's not really a quote, but it's an estimate, but we could always send them an initial notice with maybe, delay the process a little bit, but at least send them a notice, say within maybe 10, 15 days, give them an opportunity. Because once if we get a contractor on board, we're gonna probably, we'll have to get the administrative warrant in order to actually get on the property. So once we get that, we can advise them. We're gonna have to probably give them a certain amount of days before they can before we can enter the property. So if the court gives it to us today, we can't enter the property today. I think we have to give them 30 days notice. So in that 30-day period, we can say, hey, we got the administrative warrant, we've got the contractor. This is roughly what the lien's gonna be on your property, potentially. And, you know, be prepared. And that may just be a standard procedure to advise them when we do that. And then they have the opportunity, they may say, hey, you know, we'll just take it. And we can make that a suggestion or a request too, if we want to acquire the property.
Well, and also, is there interest on these, on the liens? I mean, I don't pay if you don't pay your city bill on
You
time,
can
you
put
start getting
it,
fees.
you
and
can put
stuff.
interest on the liens. We've done that on our just regular abatement liens.
Right.
We put interest on those liens as well.
So then
can.
that could be another tool to tell them,
Yeah.
hey, the longer this waits, the more the more you're gonna end up having.
Yeah,
to-
the only thing is if you acquire it if you acquire the property before it's abated, we're not gonna recover the cost to abate it. Where if if we abate it, it's liened and it's sold, we're gonna get reimbursed for it. Or even in foreclosure, we're gonna get it pennies on the dollar.
But if we do get them to sign it over to us, I mean, I can't see that that these lots would only sell for 27,000. I see the lots in town that are selling for 200 and 300, and they got dirt. So I mean, obviously there's a residential lots, right? So they'd probably sell for less, but it might be a good idea to look at to see how much those lots are worth.
We can make that as part of a noticing process before we enter the property. We could just add some language in there about telling them where, they can hand the property over if they'd like.
I mean, I like the idea, and the residents shouldn't. It's not fair to the entire area that they have to sit and look at this, and that they don't, be able to be in their area and be prosperous. But at the same time, we need to be looking at the finances for the city and saying, hey, how long, we want to get this money back. We want to recoup the money in a decent amount of time. And that's why I'm suggesting also that if we approve a plan like this, that when these things come back, I would like these to be approved by council. That way even if we do set up a fund, that, things change a lot, like we're battling a tax measure right now, right? And so I don't want this to be something that just defaultly gets done.
No, because it's still something we have to expend, and it's going to be beyond anybody's spending authority. So it's kind of just like if we go after a street project, we've got it, and it's over,
Okay.
a spending authority. We're going to bring it back to you guys for
All right.
approval.
So do we need to do anything at this time? Just kind of give you some guidance.
If you
on
guys
where to go?
nod your heads yes, I think that's probably enough consensus to know that we're good to move forward.
I seen all nods.
Okay.
Okay, we'll move on to our next item. Discussion and direction of potential action related to solar lights as a citywide standard, Sean.
All right, thank you. So tonight, staff is recommending that the city council approve solar lighting as a new standard for on and off street lights throughout the city. It's also recommending that solar lights be provided by Fawn Roche Lighting America or Approved Equal. We've been working with Fawn Roche for some time on solar lighting, kind of analyzing the technology and the benefits of utilizing solar lights throughout town. As the community and council may have seen on the trail along Monterey, we've installed a few solar lights there between Monroe and Washington. We've also installed about 16 of these solar lights at our wastewater treatment plant, a couple at our sewer lift stations. You'll see one on Jane Avenue, as well as we just installed one recently at the entrance to the industrial park. It's a dual head solar light there at the entrance to the industrial park. So as we know, PG&E's been providing electricity for on-street lighting and off-street since the 1900s. The city relies on PG&E for any type of adjustment, and it often takes several months for them to respond and schedule the adjustment. The city recognizes there's a push for an eco-friendly environment and has used Fawn Roche for the past 5 years for various projects that I just mentioned. Their streetlight options offer advantages, including energy efficiency, low maintenance, easy installs, cost effectiveness, versatility, environmental friendliness, and last longer than traditional lighting. I have Dale here from Fawn Roche who's going to do a brief presentation to kind of go through their lighting and also just kind of the benefits and what we're planning moving forward. We have a large project that was approved through the Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities program that built the Pacific Apartments. But as part of that grant process, the developer receives money related to the apartments. But then there's also a tremendous amount of funds that came to the city for safety improvements, which includes lighting. And so we'll be putting in about 60 some odd lights between Louisiana and Thompson and between Polk and Sacramento Street in the areas of Pleasant, Houston, and Valley Street to really kind of light up that area. And we're also coordinating with the police department on their cameras. So the ease of these lights, they just require a footing and they're installed and they operate. Where when we're looking at trying to do even small installs for new streetlights, it's a little bit more challenging with PG&E in terms of the time frames and the expenses, the engineering expenses, the installs. And so Dale will talk a little bit about the cost effectiveness, what kind of maintenance the city would be expecting over the tenure of those lights, and how they're going to look within neighborhoods, whether it's on maybe a private parking lot for a new development, and for street lights, and then also the application in our trails as well. So Dale, did you want to come on up?
Pleasure to be here today. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Dale Curtis. I'm representative of Fawn Roche Solar Lighting. I've been in this, a little bit about me, I've been in this industry for over 10 years and seen a tremendous amount of growth in that time. And now a little bit about Coalinga, the mission, description, and solar lighting as a solution for the city of Coalinga. So the mission is to own and control street lighting infrastructure in the city. Improvements in improve renewable energy in the city while improving also costs, responsiveness, safety, and security in the city. The beautiful thing about autonomous solar lighting is it accomplishes all those things. It's more cost effective because you don't have to put in the infrastructure. There's no trenching, there's no wiring, there's no conduit. So it is the most cost-effective way to do street lighting today. The other thing is it's renewable energy. It uses the sun. So during the day it charges the batteries, at night it runs off the batteries. The key about infrastructure-grade solar lighting is reliability also. And what's making solar lighting mainstream across the whole country, and I'll talk a little bit more about that on subsequent slides, but what the key is one, has to be lower cost than putting in the grid. That's one thing. Has to be reliable. You have to be able to guarantee that the lights work properly every day of the year. That's the second thing. And there has to be no maintenance for over a decade. That's the third thing. Those are the three things that are making autonomous solar lighting mainstream countrywide. So a little bit of also description about the problem. So this data is coming from Tri-City Engineering, and they put together and updated the city standards as it relates to lighting and solar lighting and some data around service calls with PG&E. And the current service timeline is generally 6 months to over 2 years. And that's not uncommon. It's not uncommon at all. And part of the deal that I found in all my experience working with cities and utilities and the experience therein is utilities' core job is to deliver power, and it's not necessarily to do street lighting. And as a result of that, street lighting ends up being a little bit of an afterthought and slow to respond to issues, and as a result of that, it leads to sometimes frustration with cities. And the beautiful thing about solar lighting also is it's autonomous. It allows the city to have autonomy as it relates to its street lighting infrastructure. Like Sean mentioned, there's 5 years track record of Coalinga doing autonomous solar street lighting with Fawn Roche. And so it's not a new experiment. It's been vetted. And so the solution with solar street lighting is going to decrease dependence on PG&E. It decreases the cost of doing your capital improvement projects. There's no trenching, there's no wiring, there's none of the infrastructure to install. It increases the city's responsiveness. Instead of waiting 2 years for a street light to be fixed, it's within your own control. And allows the city to have ownership of the street lighting assets. Just to back up a slide real quick on the pictures, it's the picture there is actually, we're in a city hall. The picture there on the top right is City Hall in Richmond, California. It's up in the Bay Area. Richmond is also in the process of standardizing on Fawn Roche. They're taking it a step further. They're giving Fawn Roche a 5-year contract. It's a 3-year contract with 2 1-year extensions to do all their street lighting in the city. Vallejo just completed theirs. There's a number of cities that are in the process or have already standardized on Fawn Roche for their street lighting infrastructure. We were the first solar lighting manufacturer that the City of Los Angeles Bureau of Street Lighting approved for permanent infrastructure. We've deployed about 1,000 streetlights there already. So I mention these things so that you all are able to know that solar lighting is not cutting edge. It's not bleeding edge. You know, it's proven, it's true. You're not the guinea pig. This is already standardized and mainstream in many cities. Right, next slide, please. This graphic is a great illustration of the cost difference between doing traditional street lighting versus autonomous solar street lighting. And the deal is that you used to have to, lighting consumed a lot of energy in the past. It was a heat source. You had to bring in big pipe, big wire to power your street lighting. But what has happened with the LED revolution is street lighting hardly consumes any energy at all. And now with advanced battery technologies that go over a decade between maintenance cycles, there's no need to bring in that big pipe, big wire, spend all that money for something that hardly consumes any energy. Next slide. I mentioned originally about reliability. So the three key things for solar lighting to be mainstream. One of them is reliability. You have to be able to guarantee the lights work properly every day of the year. And so the way that we do that is we actually look at every day's solar irradiance here in Coalinga, and then we size the system to work properly in worst case scenario. So we look back in time the last 10 years, we size it to work properly under the worst days, which is generally a cloudy day in the winter, December, January, that type of thing. When you use that actual data, you tightly control the data and you tightly control the energy. You know, worst case scenario of how much energy you can collect, you know how much energy you need to use at night, so therefore you know how much energy you need to store. That allows us to guarantee that the lights work properly every day of the year. There's also a full 8-year warranty. It's parts and labor. Full 8 years, parts and labor, fully covered. Next slide, please. So the maintenance on them is also really easy. It's the power center's plug and play. It's at the top of the pole. And so 10 to 12 years, what happens is the power center gets unplugged, new one gets put in, back up and running. All the systems have the capability of central control and monitoring. So you can log into a portal and monitor all your street lighting infrastructure right there from your desktop. And like I mentioned, oh, and the picture there on the right is actually the industrial complex that Sean mentioned. That's the light out there. This is a picture of Stockton. Stockton is one of the cities that's experienced a tremendous amount of wire theft. And so all these cities that are having wire theft are transitioning their infrastructure to Fon Roche. We're retrofitting their existing poles. We're just doing away with the copper because the cities that are experiencing that wire theft, there's nothing that they can do to, and they've tried everything, cement in boxes, security pole boxes, they've tried everything. There's nothing they can do to keep that wire from being stolen. So the solution is to do away with the wiring. There's no more wiring. So cities everywhere, they're experiencing wire theft. I just came from Louisville yesterday. We're working with Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. It would surprise a lot of people that the main interstate going through Louisville, all the lights are out, all of them, because of wire theft. And so we're working with them to solve that issue also. And it's great. Not only is it more cost-effective way to do lighting, but it's also renewable energy. So it's also a win in achieving the renewable energy goals that the city has. Next slide, please. The performance of the lights is identical to that of traditional street lighting. We size the system to be the light that's needed for the application. Here's an example scenario, a lighting layout that shows the light performance, how far the light spreads here at the corner of Walnut Avenue and Folsom Street here in Coalinga. Next slide, please. Here's another example here at Pacific Street and Coalinga Street. And then here again is the industrial complex. That's a daytime picture. A little bit about Fon Roche. So we're the largest solar lighting manufacturer in the world. We are unique in what we do. There's actually no one else in the world that does what we do. And our mission is to make solar lighting mainstream. And it's quite an exciting ride because it's happening everywhere in the country. We have the largest solar lighting manufacturer. We have the world's only solar lighting test center. And we have 50 R&D engineers just working to make the solar lights better and better each day. We have over 200,000 lights deployed worldwide. We have a facility here in Southern California, Monterey Park, that is to facilitate all of our work that's happening in Southern California. The last council meeting I was at was 2 or 3 months ago. Was the city of Vista, where their council approved 1.8 million funds to add street lighting throughout their city where they don't have street lighting today. We're Buy America compliant for those projects that may require it. And then here's a few cities that are either standardized on Fon Roche already or are in the process of it: Vallejo, Stockton County, San Bernardino, Vista, National City, Bakersfield, and Richmond, to name a few.
Yeah, so tonight, the recommendation from the council is to just to get authorization to proceed forward with the sole sourcing of Fon Roche to use them. We have I think included in the staff reporter and attached is the sole source letter, and this has been vetted through the city attorney and concurred that we can proceed with this to utilize Fon Roche for future street lighting. Also conditioning street lighting for whether it be for new subdivisions or for new developments when there's lighting required in, say, parking lots and those things as well as being able to allow us to proceed with, our trail projects and other city-related projects as well to utilize those lights. So there'll be standards established for all these different situations and scenarios. So there'll be different heights of poles, different style of poles, different lighting configurations based on their intended use. And we're also working with the police department right now because they've had some concerns with some locations of enhanced crime, and a lot of the crime activity is caused due to the lack of lighting in those areas. And so we're actually working with Fon Roche. You saw a couple examples where they provide kind of photometric plans for any areas or specific spot areas that we have. They provide these free of charge as we request them to see the impact on the lighting that can be applied to that area. So we're working with them right now on those locations, trying to address those so we can address some of these hot spots where we're having some enhanced criminal activity. So with that, thank you for the presentation. And at this point, staff's just looking for approval to proceed forward with sole sourcing with Fon Roche.
So I have some questions.
Sure.
So, okay, I guess the very first one how do we get away with not having to put out an RFP for the projects?
It's because it'll be under a sole source, I guess.
Is that legal, city attorney?
Yes.
It's legal? We
Yes,
we can do these without RPs?
There are parameters around what you can and can't sole source. And a lot of it comes to, especially things that have certain technologies where you can't buy the exact same product from somebody else.
Okay.
And so we have vetted that through the attorney's office prior to presenting that to you guys tonight.
Perfect. And then also, how much does it cost us to put, and by the way, I just want to say that I am in favor of this because I've seen the technology and we've seen it work, but I do have lots of questions. Maybe not a lot, but how much does it cost us to put up a street light with PG&E? How much do we pay them to put an actual street light up?
Offhand, I don't have that exact amount.
And the timeline on average.
Yeah.
It's probably within $1,000 difference, probably.
So, what I've seen with cities is there can be a range. The range, and it's depending on how close to power. Is the power from me to you, or is it out in the parking lot somewhere? I've generally seen that range with PG&E to be between $10,000 and $20,000. Most of the times it's closer to $20,000. I've seen even higher than that, but if I were to say an average, that would be the average I would use.
Okay. And then, where do the funds come from to pay for the streetlights?
So anytime we purchase streetlights, it's all going to be based on what project we may have. If we're doing a street project, so most of the time it's going to be street funds.
Okay.
Streetlights are funded through street funds.
So I've seen these, and they're very, I don't know the word to use, but you can basically put them anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot of streets in town that literally, from the entire street, we only have 2 streetlights. We have one all the way at the end, and we have one all the way at the end. And that leaves an entire black zone where there's no light. And that's all the way through town. I don't know, no offense, but I don't know who planned that, but horrible. Because there's crime everywhere in areas where there's no light. And so the lighter the areas, it seems like the less crime. And so would we be able to go to areas that there is crime and be able to put these into there to kind of light up those areas where we are missing? I mean, I hate to say missing because it's uniform.
100%.
So it's not like we're missing, but it's like, hey, we'd like to add to it.
This is like our first task once this gets approved that I've been wanting to do for a long time is to really kind of, I think even a long time ago we talked about doing a lighting study years ago.
Yeah.
And I think with utilizing Fawn Roche and their ability to provide good photometric plans, like I said, we're working with the police department. They're out in the evenings and they're identifying locations for us. They've already identified quite a few that we've sent to them already, and we're analyzing those intersections and locations to try to address those areas based on calls for service. But we're also going to be looking citywide. I'd like to even use kind of like drone technology in the evenings to be able to kind of see where we have darkness and where we have those issues, where we can try to address it, because it does make it very easy to add lighting in certain areas when you're able just to put a hole in the ground and put a light up.
And how much does the normal maintenance cost? And is it usually changing out the battery? Is that what it's in 10 to 12 years, you're going to change out the battery?
Mm-hmm.
And what is that, that maintenance cost?
Yeah, the maintenance cost per unit is about $500 to $800 per unit.
How much?
$500 to $800.
Oh.
And then also, you asked about the cost of how much a traditional streetlight is.
Yeah.
With autonomous solar lighting, the hardware range is about $3,000 to about $5,000 for the hardware.
Okay.
And then there's installation on top of that.
And how about the
our
actual
guys can-
street light to replace it if it needs to be replaced? Because we have a lot of issues, and I'm not saying with your guys is that's going to happen. In fact, I know technology's come a long way, but with our PG&E stuff, I literally just got something that I filled out from code enforcement asking them to turn up for the pole lights and whatnot for PG&E. And I think it was back in April, and it finally got fixed. And so, part of the thing is like, how long does it take to get them fixed, and what's the cost in order to get someone to change the light, and who does the work?
Now, is your question about your existing street light or?
No, to yours. So
Oh,
like,
for
let's say
all-
one of your lights goes out. Let's say
Yeah.
we purchase the lights and one of them goes out. How long does it take to get it replaced? Who does the replacement, and how much does it cost?
We're going to respond to the inquiry within 24 hours. We're going to ship whatever replacement is needed within 2 to 4 weeks.
Okay.
We are providing also for the city, every city, a full 8-year parts and labor warranty. So we're confident in the bulletproofness of our systems, where we're providing a warranty that's really unmatched by anyone in the lighting industry, period, to provide a parts and labor warranty associated with our systems.
And would this be something that our staff would install? Or
Yeah.
would this something they would
Yeah,
install?
we'll be able to, after the warranty period, yes.
Okay. And before the warranty period, do you guys install those, or do we?
It'll be the city or a contractor that does the installation. We're the manufacturer.
Uh-huh.
We can provide turnkey for the city, no problem.
Yeah.
But to deliver that turnkey, what we're going to do is we're going to have some of our technicians from our Monterey Center come up and work in conjunction with a local contractor, because they're easy to install. For example, we can install about 10 lights onto the poles and a 5-hour, three men, 5 hours, 10 lights.
So is this something that our public works staff could be trained to do, so we wouldn't have to hire a contractor?
So there's two
Because-
different things. So installing the new lights, we do. We installed the one out at the industrial park.
Okay.
We've installed almost all the lights. The only reason why at the wastewater plant we didn't was because the amount of lights that we had there. All the other lights we've installed. When it comes to maintenance,
Yeah.
we would be able to repair those over time outside of the warranty period.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't have to do a contractor to
No,
do
we
that?
shouldn't have to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're low voltage, and the power center is. I found the clicker. Oh, but I lost the
But you may not have it
presentation. But the power center has all the electronics. It has the batteries, controller, fixture, driver, and that has 2 plugins, one from the solar panel and one to the light fixture.
Okay.
Right there, and so that gets replaced every 10 to 12 years. And so it's a plug and play swap out, and it's low voltage, so anyone can do it. You do need a bucket truck or a lift to get
Sure.
up there. And then it has a toolless
That one.
entry, toolless access that's a safety mechanism, but also allows you to take it out and put a new one in and plug the new one. And so that gives it a full electronic refresh every 10 to 12 years.
And what's the estimated savings, you think, over the 10 to 12 years?
So on that, I can tell you that Caltrans recently did a study of 300 lights, and their initial savings was, it's been a minute since I looked at this, but their initial savings just to do the project was about 1.5 million compared grid-tied lighting compared to autonomous solar lighting. And then over the life cycle span, which I think was 35 years, the total cost savings was about 2.1, 2.2 million.
So like, I think we currently pay PG&E a monthly fee for those lights, correct? So we wouldn't have to pay that monthly fee, correct? So that would be, is that included in the savings that you're talking about?
There's no monthly fee.
Right.
But in the Caltrans study, yes. So Caltrans study, it factors in electricity, it factors, when you have a grid-tied system, you actually have a lot of maintenance. You've got wiring, you have service specialists, you have a lot of stuff to maintain. Solar lighting is actually a lot easier to maintain. We're deploying 4,000 of these right now throughout the city of San Antonio, for example. And the company that has the street lighting maintenance contract for the whole city, they charge the city quite a bit to maintain the electrified system. They don't charge them anything to maintain the solar lighting system there.
So like monthly fee, I think it's in between, I've seen the things, 60 to 80 bucks per pole that we're paying.
We pay about $100,000 or a little bit more than that per year for all of our streetlights.
And is there the possibility that if we get grants and whatnot for certain streets to get it built up, that we utilize the Faunch lighting and then we tell PG&E we no longer need their lights there? We turn them off and we replace them with theirs. That way we don't have to pay those bills.
Depends on how many lights we're putting in there, but yes, there's opportunities potentially to replace lights.
And then in new subdivisions that we create,
The
like
new,
specifically the new one that we're working on right now.
It's a condition of approval. We put it as a placeholder, as a condition of approval in anticipation of having standards by the time they go under construction. So we've already been in contact with them on their plans, and the plans do include solar lighting.
Okay. That's it. Thanks.
That power center, when you change it out, what happens to it? Battery?
Yeah,
Recycling it? Or-
Yes. So most of the power center is recyclable. Well, the batteries that we use are nickel metal hydride. They are 96% recyclable. They get broken down, converted, made into new batteries again. It's all in a polycarbonate enclosure that gets recycled. So there's a recycling system associated with the power center.
So you take those back is what I'm asking is you take those back? Is there a charge to take
Yeah,
those back?
yeah, I imagine we will. Our longest installations here are over 10 years now, and we haven't changed them out yet. But we've deployed thousands of these in the U.S., and probably about 8 years from now, we'll need to ramp up a recycling program associated with taking them back and recycling them, providing new batteries.
I just don't want a windmill fiasco.
No, I understood, sir.
And I have some real rough numbers just to kind of give you guys perspective on the cost. We did cost out putting in 61 streetlights as part of this grant project. The lights themselves are relatively similar in cost. I think our engineer estimated them about $5,000 a piece for the LED streetlight. However, so at 61, it's about $300,000. However, all the electrical conduit and wiring, $415,000. So that's really where a lot of the expenses are. The poles, they're both very well manufactured products, so they are very comparable in cost, but it's all the ancillary things that come with these lights that really drive the cost. That's why we've been able to go from 61, which didn't encompass almost 3 blocks. We've increased the number of lights in that neighborhood to fully encompass the entire block, the entire section of properties, because we were able to save that additional money by going solar. So.
I have a question.
Sure.
Are you eventually going to put them in all of the streets or just certain sections?
It's probably going to be primarily in new sections for right now, or because I think we have a lot of areas where we have deficiency in lighting, but there could be a long-term effort to replace lighting. But as of right now, our goal is to really, as we put in new lighting, because any new project, we typically look at new lighting. And then any new developments, subdivisions, those types of things will include those. But there could be an effort down the road to replace old lighting.
Your idea of the drone, because there is areas that I know that, especially like when we're coming home from the football games, the only lighting is the stadium lights. And sometimes California, isn't well lit, and it's, gets dark earlier now. So just wondering eventually that all the PG&E lights will be replaced with solar lights.
Yeah, I think if anything, we'll be filling in gaps for a period of time. It just allows our funding to go a lot further too, because we can make big changes in neighborhoods very quickly. If there's already existing PG&E lighting, we can add additional lighting to be able to kind of enhance that as well.
I know we hit the subject where the crime with this new development, like for example, the Kmart parking lot, I know they turn off their lights as soon as they're gone or whatever. Same with Taco Bell. Once they're done, it's completely dark there. Are we gonna work with the business owners to maybe, because I know they, like, for example, KFC, they turn off their lights and it's dark.
Yeah, I would have to talk with the chief and find out if it does become a problem, we can address that. I know that when we run project applications, the lighting's there for security, but it's not necessarily obviously when they're open, because the lights are there in the evenings, but not necessarily just during business hours. So we do want to make sure that those businesses are maintaining those lights, especially if they're if there's enhanced calls for service too.
And if I'm correct, you guys have it on different designs as well, right?
We have what? I'm sorry?
You guys make them in different design, not just in regular structure like that?
Yeah, we have several different aesthetic options that are all engineered to go together and look great for solar. In fact, that's what the city is looking at with Tri-City for the trail system. It's called the Opera. It's kind of a bell fixture with a bronze color.
And then, what's the power output on those? Is it enough to put a camera on there? I know we have cameras going up, and a lot of them are using streetlight poles right now. Basically, a camera and a Wi-Fi doesn't take very much power. Would they be able to, work with something like that?
The cameras, they need to have their own power source, and many of them do have solar options, especially like the license plate reader ones. So like the degree of camera makes a big difference. But we're geeked out about the reliability of our systems. And one thing that can quickly negatively affect the reliability would be an unknown power draw with an unknown quantity of power draw. So for those reasons, we don't want anything to tap into our power center, because that could negatively affect the reliability. But by all means, mount whatever you want to the pole, but will need to have its own power source. In the case of cameras, frequently it ends up being a solar camera, especially if it's a license plate reader variety.
And is there room inside of the, obviously you guys are gonna have your own batteries. Is there room in there for other equipment as well? Like another battery, if we had a solar-powered camera or Wi-Fi, that we would want to put a battery into there as well? That wouldn't be, drawing off your system, but is there room inside of the installation area?
It can be mounted on the pole.
Okay. All right, cool, thanks.
Are your poles aluminum or steel, or does it depend on the circumstance in the area?
They are,
Size.
our standard is a hot-dipped, galvanized, powder-coated steel.
Okay.
And I say hot dip because there's a difference between hot dip and cold dip. Hot dip is much more longevity, robust than a cold dip.
I welded for 32 years. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, yeah.
The cold weld is more like spray paint, and the hot liquid is the one that actually penetrates into the spores of the metal and actually protects everything. It takes pretty much an act of God or other chunks of steel to even scrape a piece of it off, so it gives it the longevity.
Yes, sir.
So, okay. So what exactly would you like for us to, just to kind of?
We're just looking, I'd recommend a vote just to move forward with sole sourcing with Fawn Roche lighting for the lighting. The standards do not need to be approved by the council, so the city engineer is already developing the standards. It's just a matter of moving forward with the standardization of solar lighting utilizing Fawn Roche.
And the cost is covered through the?
Yeah, there's no committed expense at this point. It's going to be as projects go in. So if we come in and we want to put a couple lights in, we'll do those ourselves. But if there's a larger project, it's going to come back just like any other project that would have included PG&E lighting.
So I have another question for you. So let's say in 8 years or 10 years, we go and we decide we want to replace some of the parts. What's the warranty on those replacement parts? And are we able to work on it, or do you have to work on it yourselves?
You can work on it. In fact, we prefer
Even
you
with the
guys.
warranty still on it?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, because we're just going to send you out a new power center.
Okay.
And so it's going to have the upgrade of the warranty because it's a full upgrade of the electronics.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Okay, with that being said, I'd like to make a motion to move forward with this
I'll second that.
as requested.
And I'll second that.
Mayor Horn.
Roll call. Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez.
Aye.
Councilman Hedgecock.
Aye.
Councilman Vosberg.
Based on Mr. Headcock's vote, I will be voting aye as well.
Thank you. Okay, move on to our next item, announcements, city manager's announcements.
So I wanted to give the council a real brief update. I'll go through some details on the current, our water supply update with USBR. So for this year, we're actually, and I'll explain why, but we're presently shopping for an additional 450 acre feet of water. And this is for water that was sold to the farmers earlier in the year. This is because our calculation of water available this year was higher than USBR's calculation by about 450 acre feet. But we had sales to the farmers that were done earlier this year. It was a total of about 3,300 acre feet, with a net benefit to the water fund or the ratepayers of about $500,000. So because we're a little short, we're going to have to purchase water, even though the water's going to be most likely going to be less than what we sold to the farmers. So it's going to just offset that net gain that we had from the sales. So in terms of as we look at future water supply, and we're still in talks with the USBR right now about this, but I want to at least give the council an update because we have been going back and forth. That USBR a few months ago notified the city it needed, but basically needed to request permission to sell its excess municipal and industrial water supply for ag uses. Though we've done this for years and decades, they requested us to ask for formal permission. USBR then granted the city permission to sell that water to the farmers. This is excess water beyond what we would normally use in the city. However, USBR is questioning that we're able to include volume sold to farmers in our calculation of historical usage. As you guys know, we've always tried to sell as much water as we can beyond what we consume here at the city to enhance that historical average, to make sure that in these years where there's less, when the allocations are lower, we still have a higher historical. So this matters because in dry years, our water allocation is based on a percentage of our historical usage during wet years. So sales to farmers always kind of help that. So if USBR limits the percentage calculation of our municipal and industrial use of water in future years, this would mean we are short water by design. So if it's just historical based on what we use, anytime there's less than 100%, we're going to see a reduction in our supply. So in our discussions with USBR, they see the inherent problem being created, and so we're still having these conversations with the Bureau. So it's not a done deal. We're not going to run out of water, but we wanted to at least advise the council as to the discussions that we're having. And this isn't just a problem with the city of Coalinga. As you can imagine, there's other federal contractors, other surrounding communities, small communities around us that are going to be in that similar situation. So it's kind of been a big change in the way that our communication has been with the Bureau recently. And so we're in continued communication with them, explaining to them the inherent problem that's being created by kind of a change in the way that these conversations are occurring annually with our water supply. So just wanted to give you an update, but I'll definitely keep you guys updated as we get more information from the Bureau and working through their water shortage policy as we move into next water year, which will be in March.
So I have a question about that. Like, really, why does the Bureau care? These are state mandates that are coming down. The Bureau, we've always had our contract up here, and the Bureau has been willing to give us water, but the state cuts the pumps off. That's what happens. So then the state says, oh, well, let's look at your historical information, not the feds.
This
So
is a federal water shortage. This is
Right.
the USBR's water shortage policy.
Exactly. So why is the USBR now basically jumping in board with the state and saying, hey, why are you guys going to use this for your historical usage? Why? I don't understand. Why are they like married together now? Because it used to be, hey, we have this contract here, but yet, and the feds are willing to give us the water, but the state cuts us off and says, nope, we're not turning on the pumps and you can't have it. And then we say, hey, our historical usage is here, and we've been able to do that with the state. But now the feds is going to turn around and say, oh, well, no, you don't get to count that water for the farmers for your usage.
And that's the
I
argument.
mean, I'm just following through this
Yep.
process. That's where this is going. Well, hopefully now we got a new president, that stuff will change. It's ridiculous.
I do have some more information. There is actually quite a few of the cities that are around us that are having the same exact issue.
Wow.
So I think it's getting closer to, it's more of a statewide issue, that we were told one thing and that's not what we got.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks
Yeah.
for the update,
No
Sean.
problem.
Appreciate it.
That's all I have.
Okay, any council members have any announcements?
Yeah, it's good to see Hilda back at our meetings.
I just like to recognize Mr. Thomas for volunteering, or giving his time right there at the elections. He was in and out. I know it was pretty chilly. A lot of people came out and he was on tech and he was just getting people going and going. And, even if there was a problem with the system, he's like, we'll get you to vote. So thank you so much for coming out and doing that. I'm sorry, and don't forget tomorrow, Coalinga, plays in the playoffs against Washington Union at home.
Yeah, and I'd like to thank the election workers, Tom, and everyone that was there, putting in their time. You know, I know it was a stressful event from what I heard, and I appreciate that. And I also appreciate Mary Jones and her paper informing people, you know, holding back, waiting to post the information until there is information out there. That way, you know, holding back the paper for that. Appreciate that. And then, you know, while we're thanking people, I'd love to thank, you know, Scott for everything he does, Chamber of Commerce. And then for the people in the audience that come to the meetings, I appreciate that. That's awesome. And our city staff and our city manager and our city attorney, everyone's working together and doing a good job. So I appreciate that. And let's hope that our Measure J numbers magically turn around. There's a lot of votes out there that I think are still to be counted, so we'll see.
I just got one more. When we went to the League of Cities, they have these little rooms or meetings that we go to. A couple of them. I mean, I put my word out. I'm not liked over there sometimes because I put in my input about us being a little city, and you have like cities like Calabasas and stuff like that we dig on the water issue, and I tell them what's real over here and how they're green, so green, but we're over here in yellow where our water transfers over there. So these meetings that we go to in Long Beach, we don't just go over there to, smile. We do put our input, and sometimes we come out disliked, and sometimes we come loved. So just to let you guys know, we're out there fighting for you guys.
In other words, we don't show up to a show with a spoon to stir it up. We bring our own shovels, one in each hand. Okay, with that being said, I have no announcements. They already took care of them. We have future agenda items.
Not at this time.
Council?
Not at this time.
Okay, I would, I guess I can bring it back. I'll bring it in next week. I do have a couple items, but I got to go talk to the lawyer before I can actually bring them forward. So with that being said, we have closed session. We have one item tonight to discuss. With that being said, meeting is adjourned.